Innovative and totally open-minded. Tommy Nation Politics.
After months of protests in defense of Black lives, President Joe Biden signed several executive orders reiterating his support for racial justice in his first week in office.
In my campaign for president, I made it very clear that the moment had arrived as a nation where we face deep racial inequities in America and systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long.
But some activists are unconvinced the president will fulfill demands of the movement, such as redirecting some police funding and abolishing private federal prisons, even though Biden signed an executive order phasing out private prison contracts.
We're not too thrilled about him, but we're hoping that he's going to make a lot of changes and do something right for our people. But he wasn't our first choice, but because he was the only choice, we'd rather have him than Donald Trump.
Just because Biden was elected does not mean that he's going to do the right things for BLM. We voted out Trump. So now it's time to make sure that Biden is going to follow everything the Black community needs.
Some activists say the key will be holding Biden accountable by reinforcing the grassroots organizing in communities of color that helped propel him to office.
Immediately before he became president, we saw an enormous amount of unprecedented pressure from grassroots organizations, grassroots people all across the country, mostly affiliated with Black Lives Matter, but certainly in other groups, really pushing for racial equity, really pushing for justice.
While some protests against racial injustice have been marred by violence, which both Biden and Trump condemned, the movement has largely advocated for peaceful protests and underscored the importance of work on local levels.
Are we feeling safe? Are we feeling secure? Well, I hope you're feeling free-thinking, innovative, totally open-minded, guys. Because this is Tommy Nation Politics.
In the wake of the heinous Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, you know all about that and what a horrible, horrible thing it was to see it, to watch it, to hear about it. The terrible murder of 19 innocent children and 2 adult teachers, with many badly injured, was a savage atrocity that shocked the conscience of every single American. So horrible. I want to ask for a brief moment of silence as I read the names of these beautiful people, all young, wonderful lives ahead of them. So we'll start. Alexandria Rubio, Alitha Ramirez, Amory Garza, Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, Eliana Cruz, Ellie Garcia, Jacqueline Cazares, Jayla Nicole Silguro, Jace Lovarnos, Jose Flores, Salazar, McKenna Lee Elrod, Maitai Rodriguez, Mathis, Nevaeh Bravo, Rogelio Torres, Tess Marie Mata, Ozia Garcia, Javier Lopez, 2 great and beautiful, brilliant teachers, Eva Morales Garcia. beautiful moment of silence for something that should never have even been thought about, let alone happened. Each precious young soul that was taken is an incomprehensible loss, literally not comprehensible, stolen from us by a malice that no words can describe. The monster who commits crime is pure evil, pure cruelty, pure hatred, absolute pure hatred. And while those he slaughtered are now in heaven, he will be eternally damned to burn in the fires of hell. As we mourn for so many beautiful victims, I know that everyone here joins for the families who are suddenly the brightest light in their lives. We see their agony. We ask God to ease their suffering and to heal their pain. And together we grieve side by side as one great American family. Now,
defeat for the special counsel named by the Trump administration to look into the origins of the Russia investigation. A jury today acquitting a lawyer who was connected to the Clinton campaign who'd been accused of lying to the FBI. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas now.
It was the first trial of a case brought by the man handpicked by President Donald Trump's Attorney General to examine the origins of the FBI's investigation into Trump's possible ties to Russia. But tonight, a Washington jury handing special counsel John Durham a stinging defeat, acquitting a lawyer with ties to Hillary Clinton's campaign of charging that he lied to the FBI.
I told the truth to the FBI, and the jury clearly recognized that.
Federal prosecutors had claimed that just before the 2016 election, the lawyer, Michael Sussman, misled the FBI when he passed along a tip that computers in Trump Tower were communicating with a Russian bank. Durham's team insisted Sussman was secretly acting as an operative of the Clinton campaign. Sussman, whose tip to the FBI did not pan out, said he was just trying to be a good citizen.
Despite being falsely accused, I'm relieved that justice ultimately prevailed in my case.
During the 2016 campaign, Trump's public appeals to Putin drawing scrutiny.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Still, Trump and his supporters insist the Russia investigation was a hoax designed to hurt his campaign and his presidency. They've been hoping that Durham would uncover some explosive revelations to back that up. 3 years later, that still has not happened. Durham has been investigating the origins of the Russia probe for more than 3 years. We're still awaiting his final report. Today, he said he was disappointed by the jury's verdict, but that he respected their decision.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics. Was Trump's computers connecting with Russian banks or oligarchs? No? So, was that true or not, Mr. Sussman, what you told the FBI? You don't know? It was true? It wasn't true? So you didn't lie to the FBI, but you told them that, which has no evidence. You didn't lie to them? Guys, let me just tell you, it does not make any sense. This jury deliberated for 6 hours on whether or not he lied. He clearly lied. In fact, the only question to me was whether or not it was a lie still, because the FBI knew he was lying. They knew he was a lawyer of the Clinton campaign. They knew who he was. And he told them that the Trump campaign was communicating with Russian oligarchs and banks. That was not true. What part is he acquitted of? He could get acquitted? He was just white? I don't know, guys. There's a lot of things that don't make any sense. A lot of things that are showing themselves to be repetitive flaws in our logic, in our system, in our government, guys. Not good things. Things that are, well, let's just say they reject empirical data and free thinking.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Even amid the devastating tragedy in Uvalde, the top gun lobby in the United States, the National Rifle Association, pushed ahead with its annual convention held in Houston, just a few hundred miles away from here. Texas Governor Greg Abbott canceled his in-person appearance, and instead his remarks were pre-recorded for the event.
Yeah, former President Donald Trump and other GOP leaders that did attend rejected efforts to overhaul gun laws, actually mocking Democrats, along with activists who are calling for change. Here's CNN's Ryan Young, who's in Houston with more.
Yeah, Boris and Chris, you can understand the emotions were running high, especially outside the convention center. More than 1,000 people showed up for a rally to show their support for banning assault weapons. But you can really feel the emotion, especially from those folks who say nothing's going to change.
Former President Donald Trump rallied with the National Rifle Association as it holds its annual meeting just days after 21 people, including 19 children, were massacred in a school shooting in Uvalde.
The existence of evil in our world is not a reason to disarm law-abiding citizens who know how to use their weapon and can protect them. The existence of evil is one of the very best reasons to arm law-abiding citizens.
Instead of new gun laws, the former president called for more focus on mental health and school security.
What we need now is a top-to-bottom security overhaul at schools all across our country.
Those arguments echoed by others who addressed the NRA's annual convention in Houston.
My friends, CNN is back with the line. Rejecting, mocking people. Let's see if they rejected gun reform and mocked Democrats that were calling for gun reform. Let's see what Trump said, guys. Let's just go.
As it association,
The existence of evil in our world is not a reason to disarm law-abiding citizens who know how to use their weapon and can protect a lot of people. The existence of evil is one of the very best reasons to arm law-abiding citizens. Evil is one of the very best reasons to arm abiding citizens.
The evil is one of the reasons to arm law citizens. It sounds like a rejection of gun reform. It sounds like a mockery of the victims of gun violence, guys. Saying that, what did he say again? He said banning law-abiding citizens from having is law-abiding citizens need to protect themselves from evil. That must be a rejection of gun reform, and that must be a mocking of victims of gun violence, I guess, according to CNN. Because we can't form our own opinions or listen to words. CNN is once again telling what?
Held in Houston, 100 miles away from here. Texas Governor. Instead, his remarks were pre-recorded for the event.
Yes.
Yeah, former President Donald Trump and other GOP leaders that did attend rejected efforts. Actually mocking Democrats, along with activists.
And mocking Democrats and activists, guys. Telling people that law-abiding citizens don't need new laws. Actually rejecting gun reform, according to CNN. And it's mocking victims of gun violence, guys. It's crazy. This is amazing, CNN.
We must not react to evil and tragedy
mocker.
by abandoning the Constitution or infringing on the rights of our law-abiding citizens.
The NRA has condemned the Uvalde shooting, but decided to press ahead gathering, though several musical performers and elected officials canceled appearances in the wake of Tuesday's shooting.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Was after Santa Fe.
Sit down. Don't pull us stuff.
Hey,
Was after El Paso.
Sit down and don't play this
Stop
stuff.
the next shooting is right now, and you're doing nothing.
No,
You're offering
this
us
is
nothing.
the
You said this is not predictable. This is totally predictable with you.
Sir,
choosing
you're out
not
of
to
line.
do anything to
Sir,
save
you
the
are out of line.
I'm
Sir, you are out of line.
to
Please leave
stop
this auditorium.
this
I can't believe you're a sick son of a... You come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
There's some outrage, guys. Outrage at the NRA, because the NRA is responsible for all of the violence that our country is now perpetrating because of gun violence. Never mind the arms sales all over the world, to Saudi Arabia, to terrorists' cells, to rebels, to overthrow governments, that we give them arms and facilitate Yemenis genocides. Never mind the federal guns that come into this country and disappear and fall into the hands of mobsters, thugs, and criminal aliens. Never mind those guys, and never mind the fact that even though Michael Sussman did lie to the FBI, he was acquitted because turns out he didn't lie to the FBI. He was trying to be a good citizen. Up is down, down is up.
I think the president has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising.
The stemming violence of our country. I don't know if you guys noticed, but this mocking and rejecting of our gun reform is Republican great, because they are under the thumb of the NRA lobby. They are bought and paid for. They are some horrible people, guys. You know what? I think I need to watch this mockery of gun victims and rejection of gun reform for myself. So I'm gonna go to President Trump's speech myself, and let's hear this mockery and this non-decorum filled, treacherous, non-conventional, shit-stained speech that really harkens to
You can
mock the victims of gun
even
violence.
while they were keeping many of our schools totally shut down, no doubt severely worsening the mental health challenge of many youth. I mean, many of these young people really suffered very greatly. They became very ill. They may have been ill to start, but they became very, very ill. Congress should vote immediately to take back every penny of unused COVID relief money, take it back from the states, and use that money to quickly establish impenetrable security at every school all across our land. I've noted inner city schools rarely have these kinds of mass shootings. I didn't know that until just recently. Think of that. They rarely have this problem, despite being located in very tough neighborhoods in many cases where there's tremendous levels of high crime and violence. They're much more dangerous outside the school than inside. The reason is that for decades, inner city schools have had much stronger security measures in place in the school itself, including metal detectors and, yes, armed guards. They had guns, armed guards. Whatever our differences may be on other issues, what on earth is stopping Democrats from immediately passing measures to ramp up school security? How many more tragedies will it take until they agree to set aside their far-left political agenda and do what is really needed and what actually works? This is not about virtue cycling and blaming your enemies. No, we don't want to do that. This is about saving our children's lives. Yes, that's what we want to do. Surely we can all agree our schools should not be the softest target. Our schools should be the single hardest target in our country. And that's why, as part of a comprehensive school safety plan, it's time to finally allow highly trained teachers to safely and discreetly concealed carry. Let them concealed carry. And again, they have to be able to handle it. They have to be highly trained, all of those things, but let them do that. It would be so much better and so much more effective, even from a cost standpoint. Because there is no sign more inviting to a mass killer than a sign that declares a gun-free zone. Most dangerous place. I know it's sad, but it really does. Doesn't it sound wonderful? But it's not. And statistically, it's a total disaster. Look at that sign and that's where I'm going. We cannot have that, because if somebody goes into that building, all of those innocent people will be taken out, will be killed, will be tortured. Bad things will happen. Have to get rid of it. The only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Have you ever heard that? No, you've never heard that. And in the absence of a member of law enforcement, there's no one you would rather have nearby when a crisis strikes than an armed, expertly trained. It was the time to find common ground. Sadly, before the sun had even set on the horrible day of tragedy, we witnessed a now familiar parade of cynical politicians seeking to exploit the tears of sobbing families, to increase their own power and take away our constitutional rights. Every time a disturbed or demented person commits such a hideous crime, there's always a grotesque effort by some in our society to use the suffering of others to advance their own extreme political agenda. Even more repulsive is their rush to shift blame away from the villains who commit acts of mass violence and to place that blame onto the shoulders of millions of peaceful, law-abiding citizens who belong to organizations such as our wonderful NRA. When Joe Biden blamed the gun lobby, he was talking about Americans like you. And along with countless other Democrats this week, he was shamefully suggesting that Republicans are somehow okay with letting school shootings happen. They're not okay with it. This rhetoric is highly divisive and dangerous, and most importantly, it's wrong. It has no place in our politics. As always, in the wake of these tragedies, the various gun control policies being pushed by the left would have done nothing to prevent the horror that took place. Absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, ever since Columbine, we've been afflicted by a contagion of school shootings carried out by deeply evil, violent, and mentally disturbed young men. While we don't yet know enough about this week's killing, we know there are many things we must do. We need to drastically change our approach to mental health. A now familiar parade seeking to exploit the tears of sobbing families, increase their own power and take away our constitutional rights. Every time a demented person commits such crime, there's always a grotesque effort by some in our society to use the suffering of others to advance their own extreme political agenda. Even more repulsive is their rush to shift blame away from the villains who commit acts of mass violence and to place that blame onto the shoulders of millions of peaceful, law-abiding citizens who belong to organizations such as our wonderful NRA.
Now, of course, I don't share the same love for the NRA as Donald Trump does, but that thing you said about putting the blame off from the actual people that did the crime and putting it on that are marginalized, are less fortunate, are not the wealthier elites. Where have I seen something like that Donald Trump talks about? I think it would be in the 1990s when this man who talks about the stemming the tide of violence in our nation wasn't talking about the school shootings. He wasn't talking about school shootings. He wasn't talking about Uvalde.
I'll be heading to Uvalde, Texas, to meet with each of those families. As I speak, those parents are literally preparing to bury their children. In the United States of America, to bury their children. There's too much violence, too much fear, too much grief. Let's be clear. Evil came to that elementary school classroom in Texas, to that grocery store in New York, to far too many places where innocents have died. In the face of such destructive forces, we have to stand stronger. We must stand stronger.
Standing stronger means what, Joe? It means you taking advantage of and gleaning on to the marginalized people, making promises that you don't intend on keeping, locking people up for smoking marijuana, not doing anything, not fundamentally changing anything, making sure that fundamentally change.
This rhetoric is highly divisive and dangerous, and most importantly, it's wrong. It has no place in our politics. As always, in the wake of these tragedies, the various gun control policies being pushed by the left would have done nothing to prevent the horror that took place. Absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, ever since Columbine, we've been afflicted by a contagion of school shootings carried out by deeply and mentally disturbed young men. When people see something, whether on social media or they need to say something. Teachers, parents, school officials, and community members need to be recognizing and addressing these alarm bells promptly and very, very school systems, instead of making excuses and continually turning a blind eye to confront bad behavior head on and quickly.
A top to bottom overhaul. A top to bottom overhaul. This is very interesting. This is very familiar as well. Joe, what do you think about a top to bottom familiar overhaul? Let's hear from you.
Now I'm going to point out some specific things, 6 of them, that we find inadequate about the President's plan. I think the President has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America, and that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the President is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs, and there would be no market for them. Let's take a look at what the real problem is. It's not just how many people are using drugs. As the President said, the number of people using drugs, cocaine in particular, is down in our country. That's true. But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America. And that's terrible. I know it's hard to believe, but this very day, violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone. And the sad part is that we have no more police in the streets of our major cities than we had 10 years ago. And what the President proposes won't help much. What he proposes is no increase over what the Congress has already approved last year. In a nutshell, the President's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time. That's why right now, 6 out of every 10 criminals who are arrested on drug charges have their cases dropped. That's why we think the President should triple the commitment that he's made tonight for police, prosecutors, and judges for our cities and our states.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics.